Good afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here as I am every Friday to have some fun, to talk all the news, to wrap up the week. It's our very good friend, TK Trinidad. TK, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Thank you for having me.
I am very excited, TK. I'm in a wonderful mood. It is a fun Friday. I'm about an hour away from being able to pour myself a beer and in good faith be able to drink it because I won't be working, you know? Very exciting times, TK.
There it is. I'm ready for it too.
All right. Well, let's get to it here without further ado, then, ladies and gentlemen. We're here in the house. You're here too. The comment section is open on whatever social platform you are on. Over on your YouTube, we got Jared Shughart saying, "What's up, Wrestling Inc.? I can't wait to see SmackDown Live in Hershey, Pennsylvania tonight. I'm very excited for it. It's my first ever Smack in person. I love just calling it Smack. I hope you have a great time, Jared. Welcome to the world of those that have seen a SmackDown Live. Have you been to a SmackDown Live, TK?
I have. I love I think to me, wrestling is like almost like hockey. Like I couldn't really appreciate hockey until I saw it live. And same thing with wrestling. I saw Raw, SmackDown, WrestleMania. I've seen a lot of wrestling in the last couple of years, and there's nothing like it. I feel like you can't hate on wrestling until you at least go and see it live, and then talk to me.
Yeah, take it in the fireworks, the pageantry, the lasers, the smoke and mirrors. Yeah, I hope you have a great time, Jared. And for what it's worth, Wrestling Inc. contributor Ethan Kramer is going to be at SmackDown tonight as well. So maybe you two will accidentally bump into each other. But that also means for everybody listening in, follow the new @WrestlingInc.com Twitter handle while we get our other Twitter thing figured out, whatever is going on there, because we'll have live photos and videos and other updates from tonight's show over on our Twitter feed. So nice. Thanks for tuning in, Jared, Andrew, Esteban, Anthony. Y'all are here. Anybody else jump in, say hi, talk about the news. Later on for everybody, we'll dive in the mailbag. We're going to look at Corey Graves. Well, what would you like to see Corey Graves do if he did decide to wrestle again? Why not? It's a fun Friday. Let's talk about it. But let's get to the big news here first. News you can use, news that will leave a bruise. Busted Open Radio had Tony Khan on today. The other TK, not our TK, the other one, that one. He confirms that he's going to make his massive announcement on Wednesday's Dynamite. And on that note as well, the Young Bucks and Being the Elite, they're teasing a huge live event announcement on their next episode. I can't tell if they're playing off of what Tony is doing or if they genuinely have an announcement on their show or not. Tough to tell these days.
It is. I mean, I think we talked about it last week. I maybe I'm usually an optimist, but maybe in this case, when somebody starts saying, especially a guy, no offense, about like this big thing happening and all this other stuff, it's usually kind of underwhelming. So we'll see what happens. It doesn't make me like excited. It's like we'll see what happens. It is a good play for people to get excited about it, but for myself, I'm just like, oh, okay, we'll wait and see.
I have been leaning for a while that this is some kind of streaming service thing. And you know, the last week or so I've been talking about how I think it could be HBO Max because I know there's that tie with Warner Media. But I read the Wrestling Observer newsletter this morning, and there was a bit in there about how a lot of companies are moving their content from Hulu to Peacock, and it looks like WWE's next day rights over on Hulu are coming up, and they could be moving over to Peacock here pretty soon for anybody who wants to watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT over on Peacock, which makes a lot of sense. I think Nick Khan said they're going to make as much money for the next day rights as they did the TV rights, so that could be another $1 billion in the tank for them. Different discussion. But that leaves Hulu then without wrestling content next day. It seems like they like that content, and maybe making AEW available for Rampage and Dynamite next day viewership over on Hulu. I don't know if that satiates the fans as far as massive announcement goes, but certainly it would be a pretty interesting business maneuver if that was what this comes to be, which I'm just speculating wildly about.
Yeah, it definitely would be interesting. Yeah, I don't know, because I have the Hulu Live package. So the next day, right? It's like, but I guess because I'm in the media, like that stuff is kind of important. So I don't know too many people who don't have the live because it's just kind of like a lot of people don't have cable anymore. So to watch, the Super Bowl and all, you kind of need Hulu Live, and I think it's like $15 or $20 more.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's we'll see. And yeah, I think Hulu. Well, I know now you can't get the Disney channel in America. You can only get Disney through Hulu now. They have like a package with Hulu, ESPN, Disney, and then HBO left Amazon. You can only get HBO on like Hulu. So there's a lot of moving parts beyond that. So if they do the deal, it makes sense. Happy for them, happy that they can make more money. I'm always, I love the fact that there's an alternative to WWE. So whatever he says, I hope it's great. But I also hope it's not going to be like womp womp.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
Well, and the way he's hyped it here with there's the lawyers and we got to sign NDAs, like that to me doesn't scream like AEW New Japan Super Show, right? I mean, it sounds to me like a streaming deal, which, by the way, to back off, piggyback off what you were saying, Esteban here saying, isn't Hulu owned by Disney? I don't know that Hulu's owned by Disney, but they're all kind of working together now, like you described.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I think a streaming service would be reasonable. And then there's the other one. I'd say 3 out of every 10 people that I ask about this think that Ring of Honor being bought out by Tony Khan is the other viable option. And the way he was talking about it today, where he's like, this is something that's going to mean a lot to the fans. And I think he said something, it's like, it might be. I mean, again, I go back to the price tag I heard for Ring of Honor being somewhere around $10 million, which seemed very high from a lot of people I was talking to.
That would be really interesting because a lot of I think Termless, and there was like a couple other like indie promos that happened in the last couple of days, and the wrestlers, their social media posts weren't like, oh my gosh, like Ring of Honor is coming back. It was almost like as if there was like a goodbye. If you were to read into some of the posts, like, because it didn't seem like the excitement was there. And not to say that, if they do buy Ring of Honor, there's still, now there's going to be jobs in another promotion, but it didn't seem like, oh my God, Ring of Honor is back. Like how I was excited when they made the announcement, just kind of looking at some of the wrestlers posts who've been affiliated with Ring of Honor for a while. So that would make a little more sense, but then, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I see what Esteban's saying here about how AEW's Ring of Honor be a great dev show, and I've seen that from other people too. But they already got like 3 other dev shows, right? Dark Elevation, Rampage. Is it really that different? I mean, it is interesting that the relationship does appear to be there with ROH and AEW. I mean, you have Punk and Bryan going into the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame. You would imagine that they are going to go and do some kind of acceptance. That's all signed off by Tony Khan, right? But I see what you're seeing, TK. Like I saw Gresham did some interview where they were asking him, like, are you excited about Supercard? He's like, well, I just kind of wonder what's after Supercard. Like, I guess they're doing a relaunch, but like, are we going to get contracts? Is it going to be like, and it was weird. It's like, this is your sitting Ring of Honor champion. And he's sitting here like questioning like the business future of the company. It was very, very strange to me. I definitely caught me when I read that.
And then also Deonna Purrazzo with the Ring of Honor Women's Champion belt. So there's that crossover too. So
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Could be anything. I still lean streaming deal. This Hulu thing definitely caught my eye, and maybe I strapped this tinfoil hat a little too tightly to my head. But that's where I'm going to put 40% of my chips on that one, and then 30 on Ring of Honor, and then 30 on, Well,
if he said specifically for the fans, then I could definitely see the more Ring of Honor, because that HBO deal is more for them. I mean, yes, the fans can watch it the day after, but somebody who's a true fan of AEW will find a way to watch it.
Well,
either way.
I think for me, it's like, and this is just an example, but like NXT, there was those 2 weeks they were on Sci-Fi, and I didn't set my DVR, and I woke up wanting to do my job and watch the show, and I was like, I'll go over to Peacock. The replay should be up. It wasn't there, right? And with the way that AEW kind of gets bounced around sometimes with basketball and stuff like that, even if it's just like for those occasions where it would be really helpful to me as a fan, where maybe I missed something, maybe something got rescheduled, right? I know I can go kind of quickly find it and still keep up. But,
Right.
it is more of like uh, the content is being consumed at the consumer's pace these days, and not everybody
Yeah.
likes to watch live. And like for some people that don't have like DVR set or aren't watching live, an option for them to find it elsewhere, I think would be cool. I
Yeah.
think it would be big for their fans. Yeah.
A tertiary option. Yeah, I get it.
Oh, tertiary, such a great word. All right. Moving past Tony Khan's ambiguous massive announcement, Fightful, saying sources noted that Cesaro didn't necessarily provide a reason for leaving when he said his goodbyes to some in WWE, but others indicated reasonable disappointment on his part for how he was used, things he was left out of, and spots he didn't get to fill. There were WWE sports sources that spoke highly of Cesaro's professionalism and handling his last match, the February 11th SmackDown loss to Happy Corbin, and how he finished up with the company. It was also said that there's still a real possibility that Cesaro ends up re-signing with WWE until he signs with someone else. Numerous sources within WWE report that the departure does not appear to be a door completely closed situation, and that Cesaro did not burn his bridge. Why do I feel like I'm reading word for word the exact same reports that came out when Daniel Bryan was going through this situation? It sounds identical to me when I read it out loud.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing because it like this announcement was very like light. Whereas when WWE gets rid of some people, they're like, nah, they're done. We don't care. So it just seems like there is a relationship there, that there's a mutual respect. And we'll see what happens, because I think the main thing was that he chose not to re-sign his contract.
Right.
So WWE still wants him, but he was like, you guys are not doing, like, I don't want it to be, because let's also look at the fact, like, he's older. So he's done a lot of stuff, and you're looking at the back end of your career. You want to do some great things and have some great opportunities. And if you're not being used correctly at one, and you could possibly go somewhere else, then why not explore those options? He's had a really lengthy career, where some people, they get popped into WWE, and within like a year and a half they're gone, and they didn't really make much of a difference. You don't remember, you don't have those moments like you do with Cesaro. So I guess he has to do whatever he has to, what he wants to do, what makes sense for him.
Yeah, no, totally, 100%. And that's why I say it smacks a little bit of the Bryan situation to me, just because like Bryan let his contract up, but they were positioned so differently on the card, right? Like Bryan deciding to walk was a huge deal for them. They definitely did not want to lose them. I don't know that the same fight was put up for a Cesaro. And maybe that is kind of what disenfranchised. I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in his shoes, but you've been there over a decade. Definitely seen attempts to be in the main event. Usually your legs were cut out from underneath you, creatively. When those things came along, gets you after a while. I don't know if he winds up in AEW. He certainly made a ton of money. I always wonder, like, when did like a guy like him or Cody's like, I'm a stay-at-home dad right now. Like, yeah, he has a ton of money. Maybe he just wants to do that. I don't fault him for that either,
Yeah. And taking a moment out to just like live life, because that grind is a lot. Like, I was talking to somebody who's not necessarily familiar with wrestling, and she was like, so like, when's the break? I was like, there's no break. There's never a break. You as, I mean, I don't know how you do it, but there's sometimes in some points of the year where I have to take like a mental like detox, where it's like, okay, I'm not watching anything. But I can do that. For an active wrestler, is like, try saying that to Vince. Vince, like, yes, we're in the age of mental health, but you can, look at Nia Jax, like, you can only get so far. Doing that and the grind, where you made a ton of money and you can slow it down, you can enjoy life, and you can go to different promotions and still make because he's not going to start at the bottom. He's still going to make a decent amount of money.
Oh yeah.
Then why not?
Totally. And I see MCAS Pierce saying, Cesaro is about to hit New Japan, Impact, NWA, GCW, various other promotions. I think he does a couple of one-offs with AEW, but doesn't sign with them. And, I think it would, we're right around the corner from WrestleMania weekend. you do have GCW's The Collective. Claudio would fit at Bloodsport, right? He could do some wacky match at Joey Janela's Spring Break, really engage those fans.
So many opportunities.
I would wait it out with AEW. Like, it seems like, they're kind of at capacity. They're waiting for the TV rights to come along. Why not do what we were talking a little bit about it yesterday, because Paul seems to think that Claudio could do what Cardona's done. I don't know necessarily that it would be the same, and it doesn't have to be to that level, but have a year, go out, play around. I don't know,
And he's in the position to do that. Like, I mean, there's a couple of people where they have enough of a name, and then, he's been on WWE, so his name is a little bit bigger. But then you see other people who've, Taya Valkyrie, like, she didn't miss a beat. Chelsea Green, she didn't miss. Like, I mean, you see people who they had a successful indie scene. They, WWE didn't work out, but they, after their 60 or 40 days or whatever it was, they were back working. Like, now we're kind of out of the pandemic. I really don't know what to say about this pandemic, but
I know Tuesday I don't have to wear a mask anymore in Chicago, so that's all I know. So
yeah, well, I think we were supposed to stop wearing masks outdoor. I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't know.
Neither here nor good. Neither.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's enough promotions for them to work, and there's enough promotions where he can pop up and people will like love him to death.
Yeah. And DC Big Also, what a great name, saying AEW is very bloated right now, and it seems like they don't have a true direction. I think that the story of AEW is a story of Tony Khan, right? Tony Khan drives the narrative of AEW. That is the true direction, I think, of AEW at the moment. In regards to the bloated part, there are it's a lot of talent that is just kind of waiting for a chance to get hooked into a program that maybe Tony will get behind. And, Cesaro certainly fits the bill for a TK kind of guy, could go out there and win a Bola, but it's just, I don't know. I think I say this multiple times a week. It's just a lot hard to break through there right now,
So here's a question. I don't know if you can answer it. Like, just seeing, some stuff on Dark Side of the Ring, and then, seeing ECW, how that kind of played out, given the fact that it looks like, TK is operating everything according to what, he says. He might consult with a few people. Do you think that, that might be the downfall of AEW before it even actually gets off its feet?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really want to doom and gloom AEW. I think AEW is probably fine. Like, if I don't really think I think that those that are ringing the bells of AEW being in some kind of rough position right now, I think it's way too early to say things like that. It looks like they're going to get more money for TV rights deal. To Tony Khan's credit, the Cody thing was about money, and we've heard that they've got a tight budget right now, and good. I hope that Tony is watching the dollars right now and making sure that this thing makes sense, so that it can keep going, and having to make those having to have those hard talks with people with big egos.
Right.
It's a tough thing to do, really tough thing to do. So I'm kind of optimistic. I mean, I'm optimistic about AEW, but the creative thing, look, they're cycling out talent from where they started to where they are now. They started with a bunch of indie guys. The indie guys are all getting replaced by heavy hitters. And once that transition's kind of finally done through this cycle, maybe we will get more direction from them, I don't know. We'll see. All right. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, shock. They're going to headline night 2 of WrestleMania. Are you shocked, TK?
Not even one bit.
Yeah, that's not really thing to talk about. But I do like this note here from the Wrestling Observer about Brock Lesnar from the Elimination Chamber. So WWE had already removed Lashley from the match, right? His pod fell apart. He had that injury angle. Timer went off for Lashley's entrance, and the idea would be that his pod would still open for his entrance when it was time to come, but he wasn't there. And so there would be a skip round, right, before going to Brock. Well, Lesnar knew Lashley was going to be taken out of the match, but they didn't know, he didn't know that they were going to signal for Lashley's pod to open. He figured he was out next, but he also knew that WWE was running low on time and had a hard out for when the show had to be over. And so he thought that Lashley's pod opening was a mistake and that his was supposed to open. So he made the choice to physically break the pod apart so he could enter the match. The other participants knew that there was going to be a quick rush to the finish. Many of them still had spots to do before Lesnar came in, but they also knew that when Brock came in, it was time to get
It's a wrap.
destroyed. It's done.
Mhm.
So they may have figured things were rushed anyway because they were likely having to rush even more than usual, though Lesnar did eliminate everyone. And if Lesnar would have just waited a few more minutes, maybe they had to cut stuff later in the show. I love this story. I love that everybody's sitting there backstage thinking, okay, we got 3 more minutes. And then Brock, being Brock, decides to destroy this pod. I would have loved to have seen the reaction of Gorilla to this moment in time, you know?
Yeah. And then also kudos to him for knowing and believing in himself that he can destroy it. Because you know how sometimes you might think you can lift something and then you try and you're like, yeah, no, that was really ambitious. So kudos for him for knowing that he could do it and doing it. And I mean, we already know that Brock kind of, does what Brock wants to do. So, I mean, it wasn't that much of a blunder that, it threw off everything, but it is not kind of nice knowing the little, behind the scenes stuff.
It builds to the lore of that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like one of those things where people are like, dude, you should go back and watch that. I feel like people are going to be saying that in like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a crazy moment, dude. You should go check that one out, right? So,
agreed.
All right, TK. Well, thank you for joining me at the top of the show. Talk all the news of the weekend or week before we go into the weekend. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Great conversation today. We are not done here quite yet, so keep the conversation rolling in the comment section. We're going to dive to the mailbag here at Wink Daily, WINC Daily. That's the account to follow. If you want to vote in our daily poll, today's poll question came from an appearance early this morning on TMZ Live by Corey Graves and Carmella, where Corey, I believe for the first time, confirmed on the record that he has been cleared to wrestle, and it's been about 6 months, 6 months earlier than the reports came out that he was cleared to wrestle. So I asked you guys, if you want to see who would you like to see Corey Graves feud with and then have a match with in WWE? The choices I gave were Pat McAfee, Rollins, Sami Zayn, or somebody else. With about 100 votes here, blow away. 63.1% Pat McAfee, 17.9 for Rollins, 11.9 for Zayn, 7 for everybody else. Does a Corey Graves return to action interest you? And do you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see him do, TK?
Gosh, I mean, he's so good at the announce table, though. But if that's something he wants to do, I mean, I don't mind it being a one-off, but I feel like there are enough wrestlers that they're not utilizing. However, you can do the Carmella, Corey Graves, and kind of do something like that because they do have a reality show. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind a one-off, but I don't know the commitment to him being a full-time active wrestler is the play for him.
Yeah, and I don't know that I want to see it at Mania, but I have kind of emotionally become attached to the idea of him and Pat McAfee doing something together. I think there's something there, right, with the two color guys from Raw.
Yeah.
Now, especially if they can go and put together a great match.
Yeah.
Also, I had not thought about this when I put out this poll or raised my hand to say I'd like to see this. But Pat and Corey grew up together like one town over in Pittsburgh. And
oh, wow.
I know this because Corey's brother, Sam Adonis, worked with me here at Warrior Wrestling in Chicago. And I remember saying to Sam one day in the locker room, like, dude, you remind me so much of Pat McAfee. And he's like, it's funny you say that. We both used to bartend at the same bar or like bars next to each other or whatever. And they'd be like, and people would constantly call them by the wrong name because I guess they looked even more similar when they were both in college or whatever. So there's actually like familial history between these two men.
Right.
But like I said, I don't know about Mania. I could see it Survivor Series time.
Yes.
Maybe because Corey Graves saying, I want to represent my brand. I'm calling you out, Pat McAfee. It's Raw SmackDown. I'm gonna rep on behalf of the announcers.
That would make sense.
Right. I think that's like the only way that makes sense to me. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As a just, saying, just hanging up his, I don't know, his mic, his jacket, whatever it is that he wears, and becoming a full-time wrestler. It just, he's just so good. And again, I also believe in following your passion, but you know, he's so good at what he does that give him a one-off, give him a bone, but come back to the chair.
Yeah. The glorious one, St. Pat and Corey would be fun to see. Love it. Love the Martin Lawrence avatar, by the way, as well. Don't know if everybody saw that Martin getting a reunion special. Very excited about that. Wonderful. DC Big Osa, yeah. And for God's sake, why does AEW have so many damn factions? Wait, I thought this was about something else, but they do have a lot of.
They do.
Tony ripped that from New Japan. Sorry, this is the one I meant to hit. Antonio's. Edge, Graves, Graves and Carmella versus Edge and Phoenix. That's another one I've seen. And with Edge or with Corey and Carmella having their reality show put together, is that more of a realistic thing, you think, where he gets slotted into kind of the Miz, Maurice, Edge, Phoenix kind of dynamic with the other couples?
I mean, that would be fun. Like, I love a good couples match. And they do have chemistry. I mean, damn, their photos are on fire. Their, relationship photos are on fire. But it just it's all like a one-off, like, or not one-off. Like if he actually includes Carmella, then it would be more than a one-off because they can build a little bit of a storyline. But I agree with you, definitely not a WrestleMania thing. But if and when he does go, it needs to be like a story versus him in his wrestling gear, like, hey, I'm here to wrestle. And we're like, that's great. Now, you sit and wait for a story to come to you.
I just love the idea of like Graves attacking McAfee from behind on SmackDown and then putting the headset on and being like, I'm calling this tonight. Right. Like,
I'm for it. I'm for it.
We've never really seen two announcers that can go on the separate brands like feud. It's just it's different. Like, I just am into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm definitely into that too.
All right,
not full time.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, hey, that's going to end it here for the week. What a fun discussion it was. Of course, I'll be back on Monday. I'll be joined by Michael Weissman. Next week, we're going to have a big AEW interview. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen. It was approved today. I'm very, very excited to bring it all for you guys. Bring it all to you next week ahead of Revolution. So look forward to that. Of course, go over to the Wrestling Inc. Daily on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment, 5-star rating. That stuff always helps us out a ton. You can also go to WrestlingInc.com. And remember, our Twitter account was accused of sharing video of the Olympics, which we did not do, but it still was suspended. And so we're working through that. And while we deal with that, follow at WrestlingInc.com. That is the stand-in Twitter account because, again, we were accused of doing something we didn't do and lost access to the account. Nonsense. And of course, come back here tonight after SmackDown for the Wrestling Inc. podcast. It's like this, but at night, different voices. All right, TK, anything you want to put over here before we wrap up the show today?
Yeah, so next week we're wrapping up all our Black History Month. So we have a women's round table. MJ Jenkins, Kara Hogan, Vanity, and Renee Michelle is going to be on there. So it's going to be really, really great to check out. We also have a couple of Impact interviews dropping as well. So yeah, you can go to www.talkpod.com to check all of that out.
Wonderful. And before I go, Adam Yarborough corrected me saying we did have Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler feud. That wasn't like a 5-star classic, and Jerry will tell you the same thing. So anyway, I'm at Nick_Hausman. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you on Monday. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.